Oh, that's hot. Oh,
Bianca!
morning. And Bianca says good morning. And I'm Travis. And
And
who
I'm
are you?
Megan. I'm
Are you
Megan.
mad?
You better not forget
Nah.
my name. You're married to me.
Okay, I'll work on. I'll work
Which
on.
goes with the moral of the story we're going to be discussing today.
Yeah. I guess it kind of does. All right. Well, speaking of that, let's jump right in. We are in what? Genesis chapter 29, verse 15. We're going to read the second half of this chapter and see what
Ooh.
happens. Jacob, Rachel, and it's been a beautiful thing.
This is a doozy.
Let's
A
dive.
doozy.
Please remember that I'll be reading from the column on the right, the JPS Translation. The column on the left is the NRSV translation. You are invited to follow along on either side, or in your Bibles at home, or just listen as we read. When he had stayed with him a month's time, Laban said to Jacob, "Just because you're a kinsman, should you serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older one was Leah. The name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes. Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel, so he answered, "I'll serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "Better that I give her to you than that I should give her to an outsider. Stay with me." Jacob served 7 years for Rachel. They seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is fulfilled, so that I may cohabit with her." Laban gathered all the people of the place and made a feast. When evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to him, and he cohabited with her. Laban had given his maidservant Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her maid. When morning came, there was Leah. So he said to Laban, "What is this you've done to me? I was in your service for Rachel. Why did you deceive me?" Laban said, "It's not the practice in our place to marry off the younger before the older. Wait until the bridal week of this one's over, and we will give you that one too, provided you serve me another 7 years." Jacob did so. He waited out the bridal week of the one, and then he gave him his daughter Rachel as a wife. Laban had given his maidservant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maid. And Jacob cohabited with Rachel also. Indeed, he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served him another 7 years. The Lord saw that Leah was unloved. He opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah conceived and bore a son and named him Reuben. For she declared, "It means the Lord has seen my affliction." It also means, "Now my husband will love me." She conceived again and bore a son and declared, "This is because the Lord heard that I was unloved and has given me this one also." So she named him Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son and declared, "This time my husband will become attached to me, for I have borne him 3 sons." Therefore he was named Levi. She conceived again and bore a son and declared, "This time I will praise the Lord." Therefore she named him Judah. Then she stopped bearing. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of the Lord lives forever. And this is the word of the Lord. All thanks be to God. Well, that was a change in this love story, wasn't it?
Just a tad. Just a tad. But you do talk about the story as being a little comedic, which I do say that this one might be in line with exactly what you were discussing.
Ah. So say more. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Okay, so Jacob had this, he wanted to marry Rachel. But he didn't ask enough questions, clearly. He was not detailed enough in his responses. So he had the walk of shame, right? He wakes up the next morning, finds out he's not Rachel. and has to go through the walk of shame. But let me pause right there, because Jacob clearly saw, Rachel was very curvaceous. He was very intrigued by her overall appearance. How come he did not know that that was not her?
How come he didn't know? Fascinating question. How could they have this evening together? There was celebration, there was feast. Maybe they were drinking, I don't know how much they were drinking. That's the only thing I can think of how.
Walk of shame.
Maybe. Did he black out? What happened? He's been waiting 7 years for this woman.
7 years this woman
Seven
has
woman
been
who didn't
keeping
know.
his eyes
Yeah.
on her this whole entire time and had no idea that it was Leah and not Rachel.
Yeah.
Really?
And like
I
you're
call a little bit of nonsense on that one. I won't say what I really call on it, but I call a little nonsense on that one.
It does seem crazy. It does, and as crazy as that one, what with the blessing, how this is kind of reliving what Jacob and Rebecca put Isaac through with the blessing and Esau,
With Esau,
but
yeah.
where Isaac felt his, in his neck or his arms, whatever, he felt hairy, but it's the lambskin that he was wearing.
Okay,
How in the
there's a
world did he
difference.
not know that was
No,
Esau? How in the
no,
world?
no, no. There's a difference between a blind man who is senile versus a young, vibrant man who knows exactly what he has his eye on.
You got a
And
point, but Isaac was still with it. He felt like something was up because he questioned the whole thing.
yeah,
So I
I
don't know.
respectfully challenge that. I
He
think that
couldn't see.
Jacob was being a man. I think Jacob was being a man, and that's why he just rolled with it. He was like, "Oh, okay, 7 more years till I get
What
Rachel."
if? So you're saying he realized it and then he rolled with it, and then but he was so upset the next morning. He must
Was he
not have.
really?
He seemed like it. What have you done to me? I was in your service for Rachel.
Is that how he said it?
That's exactly. It was an exclamation point. That's how I took it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of those.
It didn't look sarcastic. It looked like he was upset.
Well, I'm
I don't
sure he was
know.
upset because he got duped. He got
Right?
duped.
He
And you
did,
know
but
what? Here's the other thing too. It's like I feel bad for Leah. Leah knew that nobody wanted to. I mean, clearly nobody wanted to marry her. She was the oldest of them, and she continued to bear children for him because she knew that he did not love her, and he was hoping that by bearing these sons that she did, that he would love her more. And that didn't happen. So what a sad life that is for Leah, who gave everything to Jacob and nothing in return.
and with every child born, it's like maybe this time he'll love me. Maybe this time he'll be attached to me. Maybe.
Now, okay, as a woman, knowing what childbirth is, and she went through it 4 times, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Four
And
times.
yeah, and we're still in the middle of this story, by the way. We're just getting going on this whole
Well,
fiasco.
I'm just saying, 4 times. It doesn't matter what the story ends up is. She had 4 children. She, during this time, she, had 4 children, 4 sons, not daughters, sons for him. And still, his eye was on Rachel. Which,
Mhm.
yeah, maybe he loved her more
Well,
than
but
Leah.
that speaks to a truth in itself, right there. Doesn't it? Like where a lot of times, where couples they're just not where they should be as a couple, and then there's this hope that maybe if we have this child, it'll bring us together. Or maybe
Mm,
it was just two people that met, and had a child, and and whatever kind of encounter, and then this hope that this child will bring them together. And maybe he'll love me now because of this child.
because that, as a woman, is a sign of love for your significant other, is by having their child, a recreation. And it's a combination of both of you together, and having and giving birth to a child and going through the birth pains that you go through is a sign of love.
Yeah.
And that is it. And to your point, a lot of people do that today. They think that that's going to be the last straw, to save a relationship or a marriage. And that, in this case, did not happen. So why don't we learn from the lessons that are taught to us through this #1 bestseller, the Bible?
Yeah,
As
that's
far
a good
as,
question.
we continue to make these kind of choices in our lives, and what is the outcome of that? Sometimes it's not good, sometimes it's wonderful, but understanding what the consequences could potentially be should be something that I think it should be considered.
They should be. And here it's not like they were about to divorce or anything. It's just Jacob just never loved her like that, and just from the start. And his eye was always on Rachel, and nothing was going to change that. Even
Well, the
though,
time
I
time
mean,
frame was different, right? Because it wasn't about divorce. They could have multiple wives.
that's true, but I'm sure a guy could get away with ending the relationship in whatever form he really wanted to. Rachel also, and the sadness isn't even only on Leah's side. The sadness is also on Rachel's side, because her sadness comes with being barren, and she just really wants to, and she feels, again, the same thing with Rebecca and Sarah before. She feels this some kind of not being good enough for her husband, and whatever that sense of lack. And now she's just watching Leah pour out these babies. The one he doesn't love is pouring out the babies. The one he does love, can't have any babies, and she's being torn up by it.
Which is, it's heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking story, really. I
Mm.
mean, from every angle, whether it be Rachel, whether it be Leah, whether it be Jacob. I mean, the triangle, that love triangle, I guess you would say, it's sad. And these children were born, and you think about a child being born, you think about a child being born out of love, and love between two parents, and that wasn't the case. That was not the case, is the way the text is written.
And these children being born are the beginnings of the 12 tribes of Israel.
Which, how
So,
amazing is that? So what is
yeah,
God trying to teach us through this?
good question. Good question. So, what is God saying to us in this passage here? The beginnings of the 12 tribes of Israel being born. Got these women in a tough situation, both of them have a heartbreaking situation. And Jacob is in a complicated situation. Laban's pulling strings, just like Jacob did
He's the
to
puppet
Esau
master.
and Isaac. And
The
yeah,
puppet master.
Laban's the man. And so, okay, young buck, let me show you how it's done. And
Mhm.
so Jacob runs into all his troubles with Laban. Where is God speaking in all this?
I think it has a lot to do with, it may not be, what you want may not always be what is needed. That's how I kind of interpret this.
Well, that's
It's
an
because,
interesting point, because what then was it needed that Leah get married? Was that really needed, or was this just kind of Laban jumping the gun?
well, I think it was in order to create the 12 tribes and to begin that, conception to get to that point, is what God's ultimate plan was. And who are we to question what God's plan is? And if that
Oh,
was it, and traditionally, if that is the case, and that is a known factor in the situation, Jacob should have known better. And maybe he wasn't thinking up here so much as he was,
mhm.
thinking about other things.
Yeah, and they were making other choices, thinking about other things. So it's not like God made everything happen the way that they chose to make them happen. But as you're saying, God had this plan of bringing the 12 tribes, the people, and their descendants from Abraham, and kind of work with what you got and make that happen. But yeah, I mean, and that's a good question, because the
And
text
it's
doesn't say
payback.
God.
You said it, payback.
Yeah, what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I tend to think a lot of these are just kind of bad decisions, but then you see this kind of divine response. It's like this karma kind of response, like what Jacob did comes back to haunt him in such a personal, big way.
And poor Leah. That's all I have to say is I feel for her. That is where my heart is with her. And also Rachel. These are two women that are sisters that love each other unconditionally. It's family. Well, it's all family, right? But they love each other unconditionally, And, she can't have any children, but Leah can have children in order to carry on, Jacob's name and to become and to fill this prophecy that has been decided that is going to occur based upon God's decision, not ours, not theirs, but what God seems needs to happen.
So when you make a stupid decision, but
Hold
then
on, wait. Is you're
something,
saying a stupid
no,
decision?
no. I'm just saying, or you make let's say you make a decision that ends up hurting a lot of people's feelings, but then things end up kind of working out, according to plan in the end. So was that God, leading you to make a choice that was going to hurt people's feelings in order to bring out that good end, or was that just us doing that and God working underneath the process to still bring about a good end in the end?
I believe it's never really our plan. We
None of it. What
try
about free
to.
will?
I believe in free will, but I also believe in the guidance of the Lord. And I
Guidance.
believe that
Oh, shoot. What?
God will provide what we need,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is what was needed, not only for their relationships, but also for what we are today as Christians. I mean, who are we to
That's
say that that was right or wrong?
that is true.
There was love involved, and regardless, and the other part of it too is, regardless of if Jacob loved Leah, one thing that was mentioned is, she has this love of these children, these
Mm-hmm.
sons that she had given birth to. So, in a way, she has been able to overcome maybe what the love was with Jacob by being able to feel that love from her children.
Yeah,
And
and she
that's
seemed
not
to really
something that
feel that
Rachel
love.
got.
She seemed to feel that love toward Jacob too. It's just so upset that he didn't feel the same way back,
Oh,
being stuck in a
yeah.
marriage, loveless marriage.
When you go through childbirth, okay, for somebody, it's a different type of, kind of situation. But also it's just about raising children with somebody else. When you go through that and you are the one who is responsible for the upbringing of these children, there's so much more that you think about. And it's not necessarily the love that you receive from maybe your spouse, but the love of these children and watching these children grow and develop and become these great individuals in life. And like you said, the starting of the tribes, and that's who they were. And he came from greatness. And that right there may have been the gift that she needed. I
Mhm.
don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, and you're probably right on target with the love thing, because this whole fiasco is about love. It's about needing to be loved and wanting to be loved and being with who you love. And love is at the heart of it. So maybe with all the complications, or bad decisions or whatever decisions, whether or not they were meant to be made like that, um, maybe there is some teaching for us about how to love each other, and how and what is not really loving each other. If we're in a relationship, even though Jacob didn't desire Leah the way that she wanted to be desired, and that she
Okay,
wanted
he
to be
desired
loved.
her enough to bear four freaking children.
Oh, it gets
So
more
that's a lot.
complicated
Yeah,
than
so
that too.
I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out there because she
Oh
was
yeah.
desired enough to recreate, you know.
But he wasn't loving her in a way that she felt like she needed to be loved,
But
and
it's
she
not
was
about what she
desiring
thought
that.
she needed. It's about what God knew she needed.
And at the same time, Rachel didn't need children to be loved, because no matter how many children Leah had, no matter how many Rachel didn't have, Jacob loved her, and that was the end of the story.
That was it, right?
Hmm.
So maybe there's
So
just different needs, and they were all satisfied, whether they knew it or not, by the actions that were taken, throughout this whole relationship. I have to say it plural. Yeah.
yeah. So bottom line, we need to love each other and think deeply about how we love, because it impacts each other very deeply.
And you're not allowed to have a second wife.
Man, what about a
Sorry.
concubine?
What?
No
I'm sorry.
concubine?
I'm sorry, what?
No?
Fist
No,
and face. Fist and face. What?
Never mind.
Appointment?
Never mind. All right. Good talk. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you
We'll
all at
discuss
home.
this later.
We appreciate you spending this time with us. We don't actually have a picture for you to guess. We're going to give you one next week. Just wanted to show you two special things. One, this picture that we've been struggling on for so long. Show you one more time. This picture of hope, which Linda guessed that is in Hebron. Absolutely right. It's in Hebron. That's the place that Meagen was storming off
Yay,
to after he had a
Linda!
rough encounter at the tomb of Abraham. So congratulations, Linda, on that. And one more time, let's show you the tomb of Abraham. Just want you to see that again, because that's a very special place, and we're going to be visiting here a couple more times coming up in the scripture in upcoming chapters. So everybody, please join us again. Next chapter is going to be very interesting as this saga soap opera, whatever we want to call it, continues. And
As the Bible turns.
we will have a brand new picture for you to guess next week. So please come prepared and be ready for some more Bible coffee.
Woo woo.
Thank you all. And we'll see you again Thursday. God bless you. Peace be with you.
Have a nice day.
Is that
Have
all?
a nice day.
Anything?
You're not getting last word.
What?
Have a nice day.